Welcome to the Lucky 13 podcast, where we talk about all things profit and people in business.
And I think we do, but it feels like we talk about all things IU football.
Well, listen, when I've said this before. I've said this before for the new listeners. I've said this before. I came out the womb singing the IU fight song, Cream and Crimson, the whole thing. So I have sat through so much bad football in my life that I just have to jump. I'm not on the bandwagon at all. I mean, I've been on the bandwagon since then, but this has just been a fun season.
You were gleeful.
Oh, my gosh. It's so great. I got my IU Ohio State tickets, which this will come out after the game, which you're from Columbus, Ben. This is our guest, Ben. If you didn't listen to the previous episode, hit pause here, go back and listen to that one first, and then come back to this one. We'll get to Ben in a minute on what he's actually here for, but I have to ask the question. You're a former football coach. You're a mental trainer with your company. You're from Columbus, but an IU grad. So, you know, people won't hear this till after the actual event happens, but what's your breakdown of the game?
Hold on real quick. Indiana State beat North Dakota. Just putting that out there. Go ahead.
Oh, man. I would say, as a Buckeye through and through, that Ohio State's going to win the game, and IU is going to throw the ball all over the field, much like what Oregon did. And I think Ohio State's defensive backs are going to be tested. And I think that I don't know that Ohio State's offense is anywhere near powerful enough to score against IU every time they have the ball. I think there's going to be some stops that IU generates, and I think it's going to come down to if IU can put up a few more points. They're not going to score every drive, but they're certainly going to put up some points.
Just real quick, because I got my DraftKings out. What's the final score going to be?
I think it opened up at like a 9.5-point spread. I would be tempted to take IU on that spread.
Oh, okay.
There you go.
I don't know. We'll
So
see.
the message is to the Hoosier fans, you're saying there's still a chance.
Oh,
Yes.
absolutely. There's absolutely a chance.
Just to feed Mike's ego, Purdue has Penn State this weekend. Do you have any prediction there?
Ooh.
Just that, probably enough right there. Ooh, okay.
So I am a huge Purdue fan.
Are you really?
Beating Penn State.
Oh,
Yes.
yeah, you would be. Yeah.
I mean, come
You're
on
rooting
now.
for Purdue this weekend.
Yes, 100%.
You got to take a picture in black and gold then.
Listen, I'm going to say it right now. If Purdue beats Penn State,
Tattoos.
I'm going to wear, for one straight week, all I'll do is wear Purdue stuff.
Awesome. You should go hang out with our good friend Brian Neal. You'll look like a blind zebra employee.
There you go.
Love it.
Awesome. Well, thanks for the prediction. But just remember, though, IU has never lost a tailgate. I mean, we still are undefeated in tailgating. So that's
no doubt about that.
That's a big
Quality
thing.
skill set.
Okay, let's talk about something more important than IU football. So, again, you unpacked for us the focus cycle on the previous episode. So if you have not, if you haven't listened to that, I would encourage all of our listeners to jump back there and listen to that, because this conversation won't make any sense probably if you haven't. Ben, you also are a small business owner. So what we would like to kind of understand a little bit more of, like, how are you taking all of these concepts that you're teaching to athletes to be high performance, and how are you personally applying this to your current
Come
business?
on, right in the face,
man. I would say the one that comes to mind first off is just the overwhelming, as a solopreneur, the overwhelming amount of stuff that I could do. I think, I've only got so many hours in the day that I am trying to be working, so I can also be husband and dad. And so it's like, in that amount of time, there are things that I have to get done. There are bills that have to be paid, emails that have to be responded to, but I still need to be creating content and growing the platform that we have. I need to be doing social media marketing. I need to be doing sales and generating income, or else I'm not paying my mortgage. And so I would say there's a lot of times where it feels overwhelming. And so in those moments, it's like, all right, we got to sit down and figure out what matters right now. What are the things that I can control? We got to have some clear goals of, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm headed. These are going to be the steps that will get me there the fastest. These are my priorities of the things that I have to do. So I think that's probably what comes to mind is, in those moments of overwhelm, like, there's so much, what do we dial in on?
Let me dig into that. So how often, especially as an entrepreneur, as a growing entrepreneur, by the way, Do you sit down and do those 4 boxes?
Every time I feel overwhelmed and out of control and like I have no direction, I would say there's times where I have clear direction and I know what the big projects are and I know the path. And so maybe go a couple months.
Okay.
I would say there's times where it's a couple times a week.
So let's recap the 4 boxes.
Yeah,
again.
please take us through that again.
Hit the 4 boxes again, and we'll apply it to your business.
Sure, absolutely. So does it matter right now? And can I control it? And so, I would say, what are the things that I can control? What are the things that I cannot control? What matters right now? What does not matter right now? And that at least gets me started.
Help me, when you do that, how many times do you find out that your anxiety, your overwhelmness, if you will, is in boxes that you're like, can't control it, doesn't matter right now. Why am I dealing with this?
That's a great question. I think earlier on, that probably happened more often. I think now I'm to a point where I can start to identify that goes in that box. I don't even need to waste time on it. I think, now where I'm at, it's a little bit more of prioritizing maybe what needs to be done the most. I would say that I've gotten better at it as I've done it more often, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I see you oftentimes you go to your head now, because what I picture is sitting down and just like, oh my God, I'm overwhelmed. I need to journal and I'm going to write this out. But how often, because entrepreneurs, especially startup entrepreneurs, it's shiny things and it's ahas and all the time. We call them visionaries. How do we, as visionaries, because I think everybody in this room can call themselves one in some way, shape, or form, actually activate that in their head without having to take time and say, you know what, I'm about to react to something that either doesn't matter or I'm about to react to something that does not control. What are mechanisms that you use in the daily as an entrepreneur right now?
Sure. I would say don't react. I would say know that when something happens, there's going to be an emotional rush. There's going to be a reaction, and allow that to happen in here and don't say it. I think like even when my kid does something stupid, there's instantly something that wants to come out of my mouth. And there's instantly a consequence that I want to rain down on him, knowing that stuff is going to happen rather than taking action, rather than, opening my mouth, even if it's for 4 seconds, to at least let the emotional reaction happen and then respond in a way that later on I'm going to be proud of.
Let's trademark something. The power of the pause.
The power of the pause.
What do you think? Because I'm not very good at that.
But it may have already been trademarked. Who knows?
No,
but
we'll try it right now. A dime if anybody says this afterwards.
So what is I know I have this happen all the time. So coach me here. So I have some mental self-talk, that creeps in every single day that is around this kind of, I'm not worthy to have a successful business or something like that.
Yeah.
How would you coach me to move through that?
Well, first I would want to know, what are you basing that off of? Are there things that have happened in the past where you came up short? A lot of times we have a negativity bias. So I want to go back to a high-level golfer that I coached while he was in high school, who went and played Big Ten golf. And he said one day after practice, I'm terrible at 6-foot putts. And we were like, what? He said, I'm terrible at 6-foot putts. And all he could think about in his head were the 2 that he missed that previous Saturday. And so
Not
we
the
went
5,000
back.
that he's hit in the past.
Correct.
Yeah.
We went back because they tracked every single shot they ever took. We went back and looked at his numbers, and we compared them for him on the PGA website. And he would have been 37th in the world at the time. Because as coaches, we're literally thinking, what in the hell are you talking about? That's absolutely no.
Yeah.
Like, you're wrong.
Correct.
But he believed that.
It didn't matter at that point.
And so it didn't matter what we thought. And so there's a lot of times where I would want to dig into, what's that based on? And then is that actually real?
Yeah.
If maybe you have screwed up. Maybe that kid or a different kid actually is terrible at 6-foot putts. Okay. Well, knowing that, how do you get better at 6-foot putts? And then let's put a plan in place where you can practice deliberately You can intentionally get better at stuff. You can earn that right to be confident. You can earn that right to believe when you say, whatever go-to statement we come up with, for you, that, oh, all right, yeah, this is going to be all right. Let's keep moving forward. So that would be kind of probably where we would start.
Yeah, I think so many business owners, they have a bad year. And so then they start to lose their confidence on their ability to, and however they label that bad year, whether it's financially or lost too many employees or had conflict with business partners, whatever, and they start to make things a lot bigger than they really are.
Sure.
Like, I'm horrible at 6-foot putts. Well, you've only missed 2
last
week, and that's why you think that way. And so people get a little bit clouded in that.
Yeah, I call it the gravity, that whether we like it or not, gravity's real. And I'd love to tell you that gravity is the optimistic gravity that pulls you down. Optimism is actually above your head and you're always chasing it. That's why they say shoot for the stars, shoot for the moon. The gravity of the negative talk and the negative thinking, there's a skill set that you have to overcome that, because if not, gravity will grab you.
I think when you're talking to entrepreneurs too, you're not talking to just the average employee, right?
Yeah.
You're talking to people that are maybe a little bit more visionary, a little bit more driven. And I would say there's a lot of athletes that I work with they've got this eye on this professional career off in the future that's different than the average athlete, right? And so imagine like you're David Goggins and you're running a 50-mile race through the desert. If all you're looking at is the horizon, it's always going to be off there in the distance. And there's always that goal, and there's always that future self you could be, and there's always that my business could be making this. And if all you ever look at is up there, at some point it starts to get a little discouraging, because even after you've run 40 miles, it still looks the exact same and you can't see the finish line. And it's so far off in the distance, but that's where you're headed. And so I think there's a lot of power also in, at some point, we got to stop and turn around. And if we don't celebrate successes along the way, your polofrontal cortex is going to shut down and say, this isn't worth it. We can't do this. I don't want to change. I don't want to keep plugging along because the risk reward is not worth it.
Yeah, so we've did a whole episode on Dan Sullivan's book called The Gap and the Gain.
Okay.
And that's that exact same concept. If you're showing up every day as a parent or as a business owner or as an athlete, whatever, and all you're doing is evaluating yourself against the gap, then you're going to be miserable in life, right? Because he uses that exact example about the horizon, right? The horizon never changes, and you can't see that, I just ran 26 miles, because the horizon is the exact same thing, rather than turning around and saying, I just ran 26 miles. See the gap I closed on, or I didn't maybe hit the goal that I set out there in my business, but we still grew by 30%, right? But my goal was 50% or something like that. So I love that. Okay, so the last topic I kind of want to hit on is there's a gentleman by the name of Jim Collins, and he wrote a lot of really great books, business books, and he has this one thing he said, you got to confront the brutal facts. So we've been talking about how people who have lack of confidence can start to build their confidence. What about the people that won't they're the football player that goes, I'm a dog, and they're not, right? And so their confidence is like off the charts, but they failed to see that they aren't as good as they really are. Any thoughts around that?
Ooh, man, that's so hard. In my world, there's almost a need for failure. In my world, this is an extreme example, but you can't rehab a drug addict that doesn't think they have a problem.
That's right.
You can't say to that person who all they want to do is keep, entering into that state, well, there's a better path, because they don't believe you and they don't want to. And so in my world, when, mom or dad approaches me and says, hey, I need you to fix my son, or I need you to fix my daughter, their mind is just in a bad spot. My next question is, well, do they want to do this, or is this just kind of on you? And so, the advice that I have for that, I don't know.
Fail fast.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I feel like, you can maybe have an evaluation of what do the facts show. I know, like in football at the end of the season, Jake Gilbert didn't care how we felt about inside zone. He wanted to know, how many times was it efficient? How many times was it explosive? How many yards did we average? What does the data say? What do the facts say? What do the numbers say?
Yeah.
Let's go based off of that, not just your feeling of,
Yeah.
is that our best play? Are you a dog? Do you have what, like, I don't know. That would be, I guess, the direction I go.
Show film,
Yeah,
right?
it's
I mean,
an
you got
objective way.
to see film.
Yeah.
It's to your golfer's example. Oh, I'm great at 6-foot putts. Well, are you? Because in the last 4 tournaments, you missed 8 per tournament.
Yeah.
Oh, I guess I'm not. But by showing them the stats, the confronting the brutal facts, and it may knock them down in confidence for a little while, but then you know, the things you teach build those things back up.
Yeah, I love it. What I'm hearing you guys say, and we talked about this before, mountain valley flower, right? Nothing grows on the mountain, and that's where these folks are living. Everything grows in the valley. And sometimes you got to go down to that valley, and you got to confront that you're in a valley, even if you don't realize it, and grow. Yeah. But no good decisions are made in a valley, so you got to do the work to climb back out. Yeah. And that's the flower that we're looking forward to, the finish line at the end of that 50-mile race.
I like that.
You know, I think a lot of our listeners are entrepreneurs, and I think, you know, entrepreneurship can be pretty lonely, right? Because it's them. They own their business, and they got their staff and the people that they work with and all that, but it can be pretty lonely. And so I think, you know, as we wrap things up here, I think what's really important for our listeners to take away from is that the mental game is so important. I mean, I'm having conversations with myself all day long, and, you know, if I allow it to, it can lead me into some really dark places, right?
Sure.
And so I think what I'm hearing coming out of this is to really have this the self-talk that really isn't pulling you into a hole, but is really, you know, pushing you forward. And so I think that's an important piece.
And I think there's 2 elements to it, or 2 sides to it. You know, we help athletes that are struggling, but then we also get some athletes that have no struggle, and then we help those athletes reach and achieve further than they've ever dreamed possible. So I think using some of these tools, being intentional with the mindset, can help you with problems, and can then also help you go further and higher than you ever dreamed.
Yeah, and I would challenge entrepreneurs. We keep using athletes, but we spend our Sundays, you know, watching sports or NASCAR or even musicians, if you will.
Sure.
And they're all going through something, and they have somebody to talk to. My question would be, who is your accountability partner? Who are you
100%.
going through this with? Which is why your company is taking off, because the coaches and athletes of the world are realizing, I'm a 10, but I can only get to an 8 by myself. I need that extra mental training plan.
Sure.
And so how do entrepreneurs find that is got to be a research that has to be done.
And then when they're done working with me, there has to be a plan to keep growing. I mean, imagine if you hired a personal trainer and then you just sat on the couch for the next 4 years once you
look like this.
Right. So
Body by Mike.
I'm bringing sexy back.
So, you know, it's like if you put in all this work on the mental side of the game and then you just stop because you think you've arrived, well, you're going to start heading back down into some darker places potentially.
Man, this has been awesome. I really appreciate it.
Well, how can people get in touch with you?
Sure. You got easiest way, mentaltrainingplan.com. All of our contact info is on there. The link to the podcast, blog, all that. And the MTP Academy if you're interested in the sports world.
And I'd make a shout out. I know we talk about with athletes, but there's not a corporation out there that couldn't have you in front of them having that conversation. That I truly believe the parents need trained as much as the kids, and going in and having that conversation in front of people. Man, if you're listening and you're looking for just a dynamic speaker to come in and just change the game for a second, this is the guy.
Yeah, you wrote a book too called Focus Cycle. Yep. So people get it on Amazon or where?
Hop on Amazon, type in Focus Cycle, Ben Carnes. That way you don't get all the bicycle things that they sell.
Oh, I got it. I didn't think about that. Focus
all right.
Cycle, Ben Carnes.
Ben, mentaltrainingplan.com, Focus Cycle book. Thank you very much for being here.
Absolutely.
Again, to our listeners, we talked a lot about sports and how that application is, but I can't. You want a 30% jump in sales next year?
Do it right now.
Get Ben in to speak to your group, your sales team, and I think that'll pay off. So
appreciate it.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Appreciate
awesome stuff, man.